Hi folks, Smudge here, and today I'm once again going to be talking about loudness normalization, which seems to be the bane of my life. And I know it can be frustrating, and I know it can be quite technical, so if you want to know more about loudness normalization, then please watch through to the end of the video, because I really want to debunk this myth and go through one of the features in Studio One, which I do not feel does what it says that it intends to do. So if you want to know more about the target loudness feature in Studio One, what it does do, what it doesn't do, and why I think this is an irrelevant feature, then please watch to the end of the video. So I can already hear the question, Smudge, why are you making another video on loudness normalization? And this has come about due to a feature that is being pushed by Presonus called target loudness. And there is no such thing as target loudness, and I want to dispel this myth once and for all, because it really is starting to annoy me. In Studio One 5.5, we had this thing in the digital release called target loudness. You can see it here, it's called loudness, and they're promoting this as target loudness. Now, there is no such thing as target loudness, and I'll go on to this a little bit later. But what it allows the user to do is effectively choose a preset of your loudness. So with loudness normalization, the streaming platforms will all have their own, let's call it criteria. They will all normalize the loudness to a certain criteria to make sure that the user experience for the listener is more preferential. You know, no one wants to listen to music at different levels, so what they do is they will normalise the music to ensure that the playback experience is consistent, so you don't always keep reaching for the volume knob. And Studio One introduces a feature called Target Loudness, and what you can do is you can click this button here and you can choose a preset. So if you want to choose a Spotify preset or a YouTube preset or an Apple Music preset, you can click this button and it will adjust the loudness based on the criteria for that particular streaming platform. Now, I can understand where they were going with this, but the reality is this does not function as they have intended, and it certainly does not function as they are advertising or marketing. And this is something that frustrates me a lot. I raised this issue back in April 2021 with Presonus, and it was raised that it's been forwarded to the QC department and they will consider this for a future update. Well, clearly they haven't, and I will show you some details of that in a second. But there's some major issues with this particular feature. And firstly, what I'm going to do now is I want to cut to a couple of the digital distribution platforms. When you are releasing music, first you need to understand, if you use something like DistroKid, CD Baby, TuneCore, you can only upload one file. So if you can only upload one file, and the distributor then sends it round to all of the streaming platforms, there is no point in selecting a specific preset for one particular streaming platform, because they're all going to normalise it differently anyway. So for example, if you see on screen here, Spotify, they have a recommendation for a LUFS integrated value of -14 LUFS with a maximum true peak of 1 dB. But Apple Music uses their maximum loudness of -16 LUFS integrated with a max true peak of 1 dB. So even if I choose this Spotify preset, Apple Music is still going to turn it down 2 LU or 2 dB. So what the way it kind of works is to get to the LUFS measure, they will attenuate the signal using the peak level. So they will reduce the dBs to match the LUFS target. That's the way it works. So instantly, when I see something like this, it's a pointless feature. I really don't understand why this is being marketed as a positive feature. And some of the words that are being used is amazing. But it's not amazing, it's a pointless feature that's irrelevant. But that's enough of that. Let's go on to some actual reality. Now, in some of the videos, it has been mentioned around the Loudness Penalty website. And let's quickly head on over to the Loudness Penalty website, and I'm going to show you some more details here. So here we are on the Loudness Penalty website, and this is loudnesspenalty.com. And what this particular website does, it allows you to upload a track, and it will tell you roughly how much the streaming platforms will turn the song down by. So the track in question is Billy by Nick Graveswell. I've uploaded the track here, and as you can see, we've got different readings for the different streaming platforms. So some of them are -2.1 dBs, Apple Music is -4.1. Now we know this is going to be the case because the maximum loudness allowed for Spotify is -14 LUFS, and the maximum loudness allowed by Apple Music is -16 LUFS. So it stands to reason they would turn it down by an additional 2 dBs. These you can see there is -3.1, and so on and so on. Now, the thing that really frustrates me here is that this is being advertised as a penalty. Let's be clear here, it is not a penalty. The whole premise behind the Loudness Penalty website is the fact that it will allow the user to make a more informed decision about the overall loudness of the track. Because the more you push the limiter, the more compression you're going to start to apply, and therefore your dynamic range will decrease. So what this is allowing the user is to make a more informed decision to say, well, look, if you are pushing your limiter, let's say we choose Spotify as an example, Spotify are going to normalise that to minus 2.1. Therefore, if you're pushing your limiter and it's causing extra compression, you could actually technically back off that limiter to allow less compression and have more dynamic range. But it's down to the end user to decide. If you've mastered this track, like I have, to minus, I believe it was minus 12 LUFS, I was happy, the client was happy. It is not a penalty, but it's just a decision that's made, and this informs the end user to make a decision as to whether they want to adjust the overall loudness to, maybe consider whether you want some more dynamic range. And if we scroll down a bit here, what do these numbers mean? And it quite clearly explains on this website. We call this level reduction the loudness penalty. Okay? For a loudness penalty of 2.4 on YouTube means your song will be played back 2.4 dBs quieter than its original loudness. Well, this is just to get the overall user experience to be better. People don't want to be reaching for the volume knob. However, these are not targets. Streaming services apply loudness normalization, so we don't have to. Use them to preview your music and compare with suitable reference material. If the results sound good, you don't need to take any action. However, you may decide you'd like to experiment with lower levels if you prefer a more dynamic sound. We do. So that's what it's for. The whole issue around this loudness penalty is quite frankly, it's a they call it loudness penalty because it's marketing. It wouldn't have the same ring if they said, rather than loudnesspenalty.com, let's call it, well, you might be able to have a little bit more dynamic range.com. It doesn't have the same appeal, so they've called it the loudness penalty. But it's not a penalty. And this is the thing that really, really frustrates me, is it's being advertised as this penalty that's going to really impact your sound. It doesn't, and I'm going to show you why now. So here we are now back in Studio One, and we're in the project page, and what I've got here is I've got my original master, which is this one here. This is Nick Graveswell Billy, and we've got the one here which is just the one that I've run through, the target loudness feature, just to give you an idea as to what the target loudness feature does. Now, one of the things this does not do is it does not create a more dynamic master. And this is the thing that really kind of gets me, is it's being advertised to make your song sound better. It doesn't. It doesn't make it sound better at all. The way this works is it will attenuate your track. So in this particular instance here, what I've got is on song 1, this is my original master. I've run this through the Signum Audio, the Butte Loudness Analyzer. And you can see here I've got the integrated loudness figure here of minus 11.9. So when we saw on the Loudness Penalty website, it will turn it down 2.1 dBs. That will get you to the minus 14 LUFS integrated. Interestingly, look at the dynamic range, 12.3. This is very, very important. If I then go into the one that's been run through the target loudness feature, and if I then go into this song, go into the loudness analyzer, we've got the integrated loudness at minus 14. Dynamic range, 12.2. It is not affecting your song. It is not improving your song. It is not doing anything but attenuating the signal. So this is just replicating what the streaming platforms will do. And in fact, it's trying to replicate it. It's not even doing a very good job of it. And the reason I'm saying this is this. Streaming platforms, their algorithms are way more technical than just a dB attenuation. And I'm saying this for two reasons. One, because they have something called album normalization. So when a particular song is mastered, what that will do is take into consideration the flow between individual songs. But let's say we have an example of one song on an album that goes into a playlist. Then what they also have is playlist normalization, and that works differently. So what it will effectively do is it will look for the loudest song in that playlist, and then everything will be adjusted around that particular song so it plays back in a much better user experience, in a more let's say, average level for that particular playlist. So this is not going to do what those algorithms do in the streaming platforms. It's not affecting the dynamic range. It is not giving you a better sound. In fact, it's just, I cannot see a positive need for this feature. So when I hear words being used like this is an amazing feature, this is great, this is something that's unique, what it is irrelevant. Now, I've been trying to really kind of get an understanding as to what this could be used for. And there will be some use cases where this can come in handy. So if there is, say, let's take a particular field of industry. So let's talk about spoken word, broadcast, let's talk about films. They're regulated. They have regulated levels that they have to commit to. So there circumstances where I can see having a target, because they do have regulated targets in those particular industries, this could come in handy. But if you're releasing music to likes of Spotify, Apple Music, Deezer, Tidal, this is not going to be a useful feature because it's not doing what it's intended to do. Now, I raised this issue back to Studio One in April 2021, like I've mentioned before, and I was told this would be considered for a future feature request or a future update. It is clear to me that they are not understanding how loudness normalization works. There is no such thing as a target loudness, hence the reason why we have different loudness levels for different streaming platforms. They have not considered that you can only upload one file when using a distributor. All of these things are considerations which makes this feature, in my opinion, quite frankly, useless. It really does not work in the way it's intended or the way it's being marketed. And at the end of the day, I feel that I have a duty to raise these issues because I've raised it with Presonus Direct. They haven't done anything about it. And it is the end user. It is you as the subscriber base and it's you as followers of my channel that are going to look at this and think this is a great feature. Why is Smudge not promoting this? It's because I think it's irrelevant and it's you that should know that this is not going to work as the way that it's intended to or advertised or marketed to work. It's certainly starting to make me wonder what the thought process is, back at Studio One, and seriously, guys, Presonus, you've got to get a grip of this. This is not a useful feature, and you should not be promoting it as you are promoting it currently. It is not going to make an improved sound. It does not affect the dynamic range. In fact, all it does is it tries to replicate what the streaming platforms already do. So it is not a useful feature. It should be the end user that should decide. You can give them an indication whether you want to, do something like loudness penalty, implement that in the system somewhere. But this feature is not a useful feature and is not going to do what you intend it to do. And it's certainly making me question, whether I want to continue to be promoting and supporting Studio One moving forward, because this has not been well thought out. I do not believe that they've spoken to people in the industry who know more about this, and it's a completely misguided feature. So that's my rant for today. It really does. It annoys me, as you can probably tell by my dialogue throughout this video. But I just want to stress, be careful with things like this. Loudness normalization, in theory, is something that we do not need to worry about. Why do I say we do not need to worry about it? The Audio Engineers Society wrote a white paper on this, and they made recommendations to the streaming platforms, and it was clear in that white paper. This guidance is for the streaming platforms, not for engineers. It's for engineers' information only. And what they are trying to do is get some uniformity across the industry. Features like this are not going to do anyone any favours, and it just adds more confusion to the matter. So, rant over. So let me know your comments down in the comments section down below. Were you looking forward to this feature? Have you used this feature? Did you think that this was going to improve your sound? I think, once again, it goes back to highlight some of these myths around limiting, and streaming platforms will limit your music to make it louder. They do not. They use gain reduction. And this is the thing where people say, well, have you ever noticed your song sounds different? It won't sound different. And the reason for that is it's just a straightforward attenuation. And, I really want to debunk this myth now. Using this feature will not do anything to your sound. It's not improving the dynamic range. It is merely attenuating the signal. So let me know your comments in the comment section down below. Do you find this feature? Do you think it's a useful feature? Have you used it? let me know some use cases where you think it might be useful. One of the things that I've mentioned before is if you want to try and, let's say, replicate the sound of something like a Spotify, then maybe you could use something like Org Vobbis and maybe use something like this to see what it will sound like on the streaming platform to a rough degree, but it's not going to, certainly not going to be a useful feature all round. Let me know your thoughts in the comments section down below. So that's it. That's all for today's video. Rant over. If you want to know more about digital mastering and digital audio, please make sure to hit that subscribe button. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. Once again, I'm doing this for you as the community, you as the subscriber base, and you as my followers. I want to make sure you've got the right information. So if you found this useful, please give this video a thumbs up, and I'll see you all in the next video coming real soon.